Hi everyone, this is Smasher77th's, I promised earlier on today that I was going to post a screenshot for my PMDG 737 NGX camera views with ISCA, but then I thought about it and decided to make a video instead, because in the video you would be able to see the head movements and know if you like the camera or not. Now, for the purposes of this video, I have sound disabled, so you're not gonna hear the airplane sounds because I'm not really a professional video editor. I don't know what to do, and with the voice, with the sound on, my voice is so low you can't hear it. You can hardly hear it, so I decided to switch the sound off. Now let's get straight to the video, to the cameras. I have cameras for the captain and for the first officer, and they are kind of mirrored. You will see that when I start showing you the cameras. This is the third camera, and it's the default because that's the forward facing front, which is the most camera, the camera you're gonna use the most. But before it there are two, and I'll get to that in a moment, but let me explain something first of all. Now my resolution is 1920 by 1080p, and because of that I have the wide view aspect set to true, and my zoom for all the cameras is set to 0.98%. And this is because I have realized, and this is my opinion, that in FSX all other views are kind of distorted. If you reduce your zoom to 70, 60, 50 like most people do, it's kind of distorted, and sometimes I get the feeling that the runway is still far away when it's just there, and that's because of the camera. But when I leave it at this zoom level, it's really like in real life to me. I've never been in a cockpit before, but that's why I say this is my opinion. Now, for some cameras, I have track IR enabled. I have the effects enabled. That's the shaking of the camera due to the weather and due to the runway. On some other cameras, I have just track IR enabled and the effects are disabled. And on some yet other cameras, I have both effects and track IR disabled, and I'll explain why when we get to the cameras. Now, like I said, this is my default camera, but it's the third in line in the captain's camera set. Now this is just one camera set, and it includes both the captain and the first officer, and I switch to the next camera or to the previous camera. No special keys for specific cameras because they are kind of numerous, and I would run out of keys if I were to assign keys to different cameras. It's so easy. Moving forward gets you to the next camera if you're sitting in the captain's position. Moving backwards gets you to the next camera if you're sitting in the first officer's position, just like that. And you can cycle through all the cameras, beginning from the captain's camera all the way to the first officer's cameras, and back to the captain's camera by just moving forward or backwards. Alright, let's get to the cameras. We start from the very first camera, which is this, and I forgot to mention all my cameras have the zoom level of 0.98%, and this is because transitioning to the next camera is smoother when they are all in the same zoom level, and I'll show you an experiment. Let's go back to the default camera. Let's say that the zoom level for this camera was 70. If I go to the next zoom, the transition is not that smooth. You can see. Let's go back. Now if I go to the next camera, it's smooth. It actually kind of floats to the next camera. That's why I set all the zoom levels to the same. Alright, back to the cameras. This is the pilot's, the captain's camera. It has effects enabled, it has track IR enabled. You can pause track IR if you're finding it difficult. Now I have my I set my track IR in such a way that if I enable the precision, I can look very fast. Sometimes it's not really that comfortable, so I enable the precision and it moves a little slower. And I have my dead zone set in such a way that I don't really need to hold my head that steady. All I need to do is look straight or look, you know, and that's it. And my camera is always steady, like you can see it. Like I'm talking, I'm moving my head, you know, little. I'm making little movements of my head and the camera is still steady. Okay, now this is the first camera. I can look up, can look down, I can lean forward and look behind the column if I don't want to lower it. I can lean back to my position. I can, now you can take a look at the HUD, how my HUD setting is, or AGS. You can see that everything is centered. Oh, it's night. Let me reduce the intensity. Okay. Everything is centered and I can move in and move back out. Alright, I left it this camera view this way because I believe in the real cockpit the pilot doesn't really see everything. He needs to look down before he can see them. So I like it. That's my opinion anyways. Okay, that's this camera. From there we go to the MCP camera. You can look around. This camera has track IR enabled but has the effects disabled, so you can turn the knobs without having to worry about centering your head and all that headache. The next camera is for the primary display units. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. And you can look around. You can set everything you want from here if you want to, like the CDU. Next camera is just the upper display unit, the center upper display unit, and the lower. Track IR, like you can see, is enabled but effects are disabled. Next one is the CDU. Everything is disabled. And it's tilted this way because, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, that's the way the pilot would see it, looking down left right. Sorry, looking down right. Next one is the throttle quadrant. Everything is also disabled, effects on track IR. Next one is the upper side of the pedestal. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. Next is the lower portion or the back portion of the pedestal. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. Let me lighten up this place a little bit. And that's it for the captain's cameras. Next one is just supposedly a jump seat camera, but I put it in the middle so you'll be able to look around better than you would if you were sitting on this jump seat. Okay, everything is enabled because you're really not doing anything. You're not turning any knobs. This is just a fun camera, so to speak. From here on, we get to the first officer's cameras, and it's just the same way as the captain's camera, but it's backwards and it's mirrored. So we go back to the to the pedestal, the back side of the pedestal, to the front side of the pedestal. Both cameras have track IR enabled, effects disabled. After that is the throttle quadrant. Track IR is disabled, effects disabled. CDU, track IR disabled, effects disabled. And we have the upper display unit in the center. Track IR is enabled, effects disabled. Same thing with the primary DUs for the first officer. Track IR is enabled, effects disabled. Next is the MCP. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. And the next one is the primary flight camera for the first officer. Everything is enabled. You can pause your track IR if you're shaking too much when you're turning the knobs. And you can look around, can access virtually all the display, all the upper display panel through this camera. Okay, and moving forward gets you to the overhead panel camera. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. And the next camera is the same overhead panel but toward the front, just for the lights and things that are closer to the front. Track IR is enabled, effects are disabled. And after that, you go back, you cycle back to the beginning, which is first officer's overhead panel forward. Sorry, captain's overhead panel forward, captain's overhead panel, all of it. And then the default camera, which is captain's flying position, if I may use that term. So that's it. Like I said, you can access everything. Even from this camera, I can access the yaw damper without having to shift the projector. It's a yaw damper. I can access the IRS switches. Let me make the place a little brighter. Sorry, I didn't turn on the lights first time. Okay, so you can access everything sitting in your seat just like a real pilot would, but just in case it's a little difficult for you, you can go to the overhead panel switches, overhead panel cameras. So that's it, guys. I hope you would like it, and if you want it, just PM me and I'll send you the files, the camera and the effects. They're just one file. It's just one file. I'll give you instructions on how to, on where to copy and paste them. I hope you liked the video. Like I said, this is not a professional video. Please do not tell me how I didn't put the correct names of the displays and how I didn't do this and that. This is just for the camera. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.